Bases dropped on the wall past Wednesday. It's Soccer's morning show. Soccer down here. John here, you there. Thanks for hanging out with us as you always do. And however you access us, large device or small, and wherever you're accessing us, just safe accessing if you're behind the wheel of a car perhaps or something like that. Ways to access us. It is on the SDH app through Google Play. It is through Spreaker's app on iOS, and then you do a search for Soccer Down Here. And you can access us that way. You can also go to soccerdownhere.net and on the website and catch up with us that way in a bunch of different directions. So this morning, according to BAM, the PSG Ultras are boycotting the rest of the season, home and away. We'll see what happens there, see how long that lasts. I mean, we're considering the suspension for Lionel Messi lasted 1 week instead of 2. Morning, Abby. Morning, Sean. No, I wouldn't. Sean, why, Sean? Why are you old? And for those that are unfamiliar, just listening to the audio version, when we're doing the version on Twitch, we have a conversation with our friends in the Twitch pitch, and it's comments and conversation and things like that. Sean, it might have been a quick turn for watching your Florida Panthers turning half of a country into folks sitting in a corner wringing their hands and cursing obscenities to the sky. For those that are not aware, Sean is a big Florida Panthers fan. And so Florida is this close to knocking the Maple Leafs out of the you're heading down now. I thought you were heading down on Monday. Brought your broom. Okay. So now he's heading down for game 4. I thought you were heading down this past weekend for 3 and 4. Okay. Morning, Abby. Open Cup. We're going to talk a lot about Open Cup here in hour number 1. Hour number 1 is Open Cup. It is Champions League. It is the Canadian Championship for one match in particular and the after effects. Talk a little NWSL, and all those kinds of things. And then hour number 2, if Dylan Butler is not doing high school down here, then Dylan will join us at 10, and we are always anticipating reffing down here. And this week's episode with Bart Keeler from the SoccerForUS POD, that'll come at 10:30. And Bart, as you may remember, had comments. He had thoughts from what happened on Monday. And we will get into those thoughts from Armando Villarreal's no good, very bad day, and how it impacted Atlanta United, and how we go at it from the reffing perspective. While we will look at the events that will bring about reffing down here, we look at it through his prism of refereeing, and we'll go through it from there. Yes. And so, yes, Sean, I am sporting, for those watching on Twitch, my Roy F. and Kent t-shirt because of episode 9. And it sucks that there's only 3 more left. So to answer your question, Sean, very, very good. And probably one of the sequences of the entire series. And once again, as we've been told, no spoilers. So we won't be giving spoilers, although we will say that episode 9, very, very good. So for season 3. And no, we're not giving anything away. I'm just saying that last night's episode, the thing is, and what they've done now, because of high demand, traditionally they said, it's out on Wednesdays. I think that's kind of gotten its way to like Greenwich Mean Time. So midnight London time is almost to the point of the release. And so the way that it is now, it's like Brendan Hunt on his Twitter said at 9:00 Eastern Tuesday night, you can watch. And so that's what we started doing. Literally, as soon as 9:00 hit, I was going from Open Cup. I had Open Cup on one. I had one device, and then we dialed up Ted Lasso on the big TV in the den. And it took a little while. And I was not the only individual that logged in at 9:00 Eastern time. I mean, imagine if you're out west, 6:00 dinner hour on a Tuesday. Hey, Ted Lasso's up. Bang. But no, at 9:00 Eastern time, it took a little while for Apple TV to register that we were interested in watching Apple TV. It thought about it for a little bit. So it was an interesting social experiment just to see what would happen if you logged in right at 9:00, and it took a while. No surprise. But yes, Ted Lasso, 309, very, very good. Yep, and Dolphins and Jets. And that's another part. The NFL's part of the NFL schedule release, Bam. Now that Bam has seen that the Dolphins and Jets get to play on Black Friday. Yep. You get that. And there are a couple of, and Jacksonville, I think, is going to play back-to-back weeks in London. And I know a lot of folks are sitting there saying, just go ahead and move them. I mean, just go ahead and play them at Craven Cottage and get it over with. So, yep, the NFL, American football, they're doing their thing too. Opening kickoff brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. There's your QR code for those of you who are watching on Twitch. And once again, thanks to everybody who's investing in Kickoff Coffee. Don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15 when you do pick up your Kickoff Coffee, regardless of flavor and flavor choice. And they, in turn, take 10% reinvested into the youth game. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. So, Open Cup last night. Had its moments. Yes, Sean, excellent. Sean has a routine now. Order delivery of Chipotle at 8:15, just in time for Lasso at 9, along with a nice vodka mule. There you go. Ricky's now Giants and Eagles on Christmas. All right, so Open Cup last night. We had 8 matchups, and going through each and every one of them, that they had their moments last night, but the beauty of the beauty of the Open Cup, the magic of the Open Cup, is that sometimes you end up with things that that are going to hang with you for a while. So, what I'm also going to do is grab the lineups in a couple of these situations. In a couple of these situations, let's just say it was interesting. And some teams couldn't even get out of their own blanking way when it came to what they wanted to do and what they were trying to accomplish last night. So, so it was interesting. Let's just put it that way. Charleston and Inter Miami only had the one goal on the board, but it was like a triple doink. So, deflects off of the face of Battery defender Sebastian Palma, and it ends up going in the net, and that was the only goal. That was the only goal in that match, and it was the one that was being played in at DRVP&K in Fort Lauderdale. So it was just that one goal, and that's all you need. But then there was a removal, and Michelle Kaufman was part of seeing this go down last night. So Michelle Kaufman was part of seeing Joseph Martinez get removed from the match, and apparently Joseph got into a rather heated display, apparently like punching chairs and things like that. And his coach Phil Neville said, "Yeah, I like that kind of energy." So you end up with a 1-0 win, round of 16. Inter Miami advances. Charlotte and Orlando City. This one was on Golasso Network, and for what it was worth, I don't know if the bandwidth at Office HD was different than everybody else, but in trying to catch this one, it looked like CBS Sports Golasso Network last night had a lot of traffic. And so it was the picture was a little blurry last night. Like I said, it could have been me going through my own Paramount Plus, but it looked like a lot of folks were interested in what Golasso Network had on last night. Charlotte gets the one goal on the board. They knock off Orlando City. And in looking at the last 30 minutes of that match, it was just like bombing it and trying to catch up to it, bombing it and catching up to it. And it didn't work for Orlando City. Last night, you had Charlotte Charlotte played a couple of folks that they had to because they aren't playing this weekend, Derek Jones and Enzo Capetti, because of yellow card accumulation. So they got their full time out of Derek Jones and Enzo Capetti last night. Justin Miram got the start. Your lineup was Kalina in net, Hegart, Jones, Sobaczynski, Hamadi Diop, Brant Bronico, Harrison Offal, Ben Bender, Oren Gaines, Capetti, and Justin Miram. So we'll see how many of those individuals, short of DJ and Capetti, who cannot play, and the injuries that are attached to what we're seeing from Charlotte. And like I said, we'll get into this discussion on Friday night at Reverb, the hotel presented by the Hard Rock, with all of us and Jessica Charman. I don't know if there are any spots left available. Go check out the Flood Project on Facebook. It's an Eventbrite reservation. And I think that we had 25 yesterday that could be up at the top floor with us to come and hang out with. By all appearances, it's going to be Jason, Jarrett, Nick, me, Mike, and Jessica Charman. So it's going to be like 6 of us having a discussion. I think we're going to start at 7 o'clock. But check the Flood Project on Facebook, and so we'll see what's going on. A concert at State Farm on Friday, so we'll see. We'll see what the concert is at State Farm. I'll check my let's see, State Farm Arena events. Probably go to Ticketmaster or something like that and see what's going on. Events, State Farm Arena. So get there Friday. Yeah. Strength of a Woman Festival. Mary J. Blige, Jodeci, Jeezy, Busta Rhymes, Method Man, Jadakiss, DJ Drama, and Friends. Night 1 of 2. Mary J. Blige is the headliner. So that's what. So that's what it is at State Farm on Friday. So if you're coming down to Reverb, you might want to come a little early or take public transportation. Take MARTA or something like that. But yeah, night 1 of the Strength of a Woman Festival, Friday night, Saturday night at State Farm. So plan accordingly. But injuries with Charlotte right now meant last night that they pretty much had to go with that they did make some subs at the half that included Jalen Lindsay playing 45, so Harrison Offal played 45. Josviak came in, got the goal in the match. Josviak played 30. Justin Miram played 60, probably reverses on the weekend. Nathan Byrne came in. He played 30. Hamadi Diop played 60. Shvidersky came in and played 30. Chris Hegart getting the start. And Ashley Westwood came in for the final 15, replacing Gaines, which is funny on SofaScore because they abbreviate Orrin McKenzie Gaines II. McKenzie Gaines, basically. We all know him as McKenzie Gaines, but SofaScore, Orrin McKenzie Gaines II. In the substitutions, they go Ashley Westwood in the 77th minute, out OMG2. Orrin McKenzie Gaines II is now OMG2 forever and ever. So that's what you're staring at. But injuries to Melanda, Tuiloma, Mora, and Josviak. Josviak's nursing a bit of a thigh injury, so you get 30 out of him. We'll see how it is on the turn for Josviak. But, yeah, injuries to Melanda, Tuiloma, and Mora. You will not have Derek Jones. You will not have Enzo Capetti. You don't know how much you'll have Camille Josviak. So that's what you're staring at from Charlotte in that particular matchup. Red Bulls DC United. Very Red Bullsian. I guess that they got the new coach bounce with Troy Lacine, and they win at 1-0 at Montclair over DC United. I wonder if Bob Lilly yelled even after beating Bruce Arena last night. Pittsburgh Riverhounds go to New England to get the win 1-0. New England out of Open Cup. Out. OWT out. Pittsburgh Riverhounds go on the road, get the win in Open Cup. Big win for that program. Pittsburgh Riverhounds go, and the lineup for The lineup for New England, you had Earl Edwards in net, backline of Bulma, Omar Gonzalez. That should tell you something right there. Christian McCoon, Ben Sweat, Justin Renix, Jack Panayotu, who we've seen with Revs 2, Latif Blessing, Josie Altidore, Giacomo Vrioni, and Damian Rivera. Danny Griffin scored the goal for Pittsburgh. So 1-0, and that's it for New England. New England is out of Open Cup. So Danny Griffin scoring just before halftime, and that's your difference right there. So Pittsburgh advances in Open Cup. Then, as we get later and later, things kind of got crazier and crazier. Chicago Fire beat St. Louis City. St. Louis City, I think, has only won once in their last 7 now. So the Fire Ezra, come in with a lineup. They hosted Bridgeview. Then they beat St. Louis City. Minnesota United, Philadelphia Union. They go to PKs. It was 3-3, and it was crazy in the 30 minutes after the 90, the added time. Let me see if I can grab all of the goals in sequence. I want to get the goals here in sequence. So here's how it all lays out. You don't get a goal anyway until the 68th minute. Longwane had a great run inside the box, left a couple of players trying to find their shoes and a couple of other body parts on beyond the end line. So Longwane scores to make it 1-0 Minnesota. Joseph Rosales scores 5 minutes later to make it 2-0. Chris Donovan scores in the 78th to make it 2-1. Kai Wagner scores at 90 plus 4 to go 2-2, which means you get an extra 30 out of the deal. Look at your fantasy teams accordingly after this match. Longwane scores his brace in the 103rd minute. Kai Wagner scores again in the 120th. Everybody's sitting there thinking, okay, Loons got it once. No, they don't. Loons got it twice. No, they don't. Then they go to PKs. 7-6 in the PKs. That's how deep we got before you end up with the win for Minnesota as Kai Wagner gets saved. And you know who saved it? You know who saved it for Minnesota? Clint Irwin. Clint Irwin getting reps. Clint Irwin getting reps last night. And he saves the penalty that gets Minnesota onto the round of 16. Clint Irwin. Apparently 2014 was calling. Yes, Atlanta United legend Clint Irwin. Kefsey, you are absolutely 100% correct. Absolutely 100% correct. SofaScore had Rosales punch out at an 8.4. Even with the even with the goal in the yellow. Goal in the yellow, and he had an 8.4. And Longwane with his brace came in the 63rd minute. So Longwane had an 8.4. Clint Irwin, people. That's the magic of the Open Cup right there. 3 saves, a punch clear, 1 save from inside the box, 2 saves in the penalty shootout. 9 of 15 on long balls, 3 clearances. Clint Irwin. Clint Irwin. That's what you're getting in Open Cup. 7-6 in PKs. Minnesota moves on. Colorado and Sacramento. This one was at Hard Health. And it had its moments of crazy. You had Sacramento get a red. There's a second yellow from Shane Wheat. Basically, it was in back-to-back minutes. Shane Wheat got a yellow in the 61st, and then back-to-back cards, bang, bang, red, you're gone. And it was at 3-2 at that point. I mean, it was early on, it was Colorado. Once again, the MLS side gets the lead, 1-0, 2-0. Then Herrera scores for Sacramento. We had a Jack Gurr sighting, by the way, for Sacramento. 2-1, 2-2. It was 2-2 in the 52nd minute. Then they get the red. You end up with a goal. You get a goal from Sam Nicholson at 55. Then you get the red. Then they score again, Michael Barrios, with 10 minutes to go, and then it was a 4-2 final. Then the last match of the night, and I've been building up to this one on purpose. It's a good question, Ricky. I do not know. That is a Scott Flood question. So please ask the Flood Project. That's a good question. Last night, Monterey Bay and LAFC. Insert your jokes here. We all know that LAFC has some kind of important things that they got to keep their eye on, like winning CONCACAF Champions League against Leon. So, with a match tonight, if I'm not mistaken, hang on just a second. Let me check this out, because if I remember our MLS Next Pro show. Yep. Okay. So, building backward. Yeah, Monterey Bay. Well, and bam, you'll enjoy this. Morning, Tom. We're talking Open Cup. Tonight at 10 o'clock, LAFC 2 is basically playing in back-to-back days. They've got an MLS Next Pro match at 10 o'clock tonight at home. At least it's at home in Fullerton against St. Louis City SC2. Sorry, St. Louis City SC2, all caps. So LAFC 2 has a match tonight. Last night, LAFC, in name, went up against Monterey Bay. Here's your starting lineup for LAFC. Christian Torres, Yekson Suba, Nathan Ordaz, Christopher Jaime, Daniel Crisostomo, Eric Duenas, Jeremy Rodriguez, Diego Rosales, Noah Dollenmeyer, Javan Rivero, and in net, your captain, Eldon Jakupovic. Yep. That was your lineup last night for LAFC. Your bench, of which Cherundolo only had 7, and one of them was a backup keeper. Laji Malay, Armando Avila, Mateus Maya, and Brian Moyato. And he had Romero, Jeremy Badioja, and Dustin Aguirre on the bench. That was the lineup last night. The average age for LAFC 2, believe it or not, close. Yeah, LAFC 3 is going to be playing tonight. The average age, believe it or not, and I'm sure that Jakupovic probably boosted it the other direction. Average age for LAFC last night, 21.7. Average age for Monterey Bay last night, 27.6. And everybody's sitting there going, LAFC can't get out of their own way. They scored in the 25th minute to take a lead when the last thing they need is schedule compression. They had a lead in the match. Then in the 90th minute, Simon Dawkins scored, which is once again just what LAFC 2 needed. Yeah, let's play another 30. So they played another 30. And Monterey Bay scored in the 94th minute. And I'm sure that folks, they probably wouldn't admit it. But LAFC's probably sitting there going, yes, yes, yes. But, of course, they kept playing. And then Mateus Maya scores in the 105th. So they go to penalties. And it goes 5 rounds. But it ends up with Jakupovic saving the last 2 from Sean Okoli, or 2 of the last 3 from Sean Okoli and Moby Fair. Jakupovic had the highest rating for LAFC last night at a 7.8. But yeah, Crisostomo got saved early. That was balanced out by Shauna Coley. So they had to go to the fifth frame, and in the fifth, LAFC 2 scores. Sorry, I should just go ahead and say LAFC. LAFC 2 scores, and then Moby Fair is saved by Jakupovic to keep LAFC in the Open Cup. Way to go. So LAFC stayed in the Open Cup. Yeah, it was an ouch for St. Louis. So Bam is saying today's Tuesday match will be a mix of the U15s and U17s, who both had wins over the Galaxy over the weekend. So that was your Open Cup last night. You had your bit of madness, and so you got more of it tonight. Tonight, here's your rundown, and we do have juice boxes, by the way. That draw number in the juice boxes for Monterey Bay, that was the play last night. I know, and Jarrett was like, "Yeah, I'm thinking about it, but also that's straight up." So, yeah, last night Monterey Bay was the play at that plus 300. Let's see, what was the number, by the way? Plus 261 by the time that they got to kick. The draw, 90-minute draw, plus 261. So tonight, FC Cincinnati, New York City. FC Cincinnati's a plus 102. Crew on the road at Segra to take on Loudoun United at 7 o'clock is a minus 133. 8 o'clock, Birmingham hosting Memphis. Legion are a plus 134. Dynamo and Sporting Kansas City at 8:30. Dynamo even money plus 100. 8:30 at Geodis. You might be able to find parking for this one. Nashville is a minus 110. Austin at home against New Mexico United is a minus 200 at 9 o'clock. Galaxy at home taking on Seattle is a plus 108. Seattle's really dinged up. We'll catch up with Nico Moreno before the end of the week to get his thoughts. And Timbers hosting RSL, and that's a minus 111 to the Timbers. Viewing where you can catch these matches. It is, if I could click the right tab. Where's my tab? Which one is it? Oh, no, that's not it. It's the one that's obscured, of course. Loudoun and Columbus is on BR. FC Cincinnati, NYC at TQL's on Golasso. Birmingham, Memphis is on the US Soccer YouTube channel. Nashville and FC Dallas is on BR. Dynamo and Sporting is on the US Soccer YouTube channel. Austin, New Mexico United, which should be a pretty hot crowd, is on BR. Galaxy and Seattle from Carson, California is the back end of your Golasso Network doubleheader. Portland and Real Salt Lake is your BR, is also on BR. So that's how you can watch the Open Cup tonight and see if we get to continue and watch the magic of the Open Cup for night number 2. Did you see you lost 100 on your game, Bam? Night, Bam. Hopefully your U15s and 17s can do better over a full 90 minutes. Mm-hmm. Ricky, yes, your first mistake was betting on it, unless you wanted to go Monterey Bay. Did you see Canadian Championship last night? And it was Montreal and Toronto. Montreal and Toronto at BMO last night. Tonight at 7:30, it's York United, Vancouver Whitecaps. So last night, 2 matches. Forge beat Atletico Ottawa in penalties. CF Montreal, who came to BMO as a plus 282 dog, got the win 2-1. Video is out there, and it's disturbing that there were fights before the match started, and it's on Twitter, so all you have to do is look it up. Fights before the match started in one of the sections between ultras for CF Montreal, soon to be Impact, probably, maybe, hopefully sooner rather than later, maybe never, and Toronto FC fans. It was alleged by the CF Montreal fans that security knew, the guy who pulls off the belt going old school, no doubt about it. It was alleged by the CF Montreal fans, security knew that they were coming. They were warned that this was going to happen. Yet in the one particular instance that is on social media, no one, it was in a fairly empty part of the stadium. It was up in the rafters, and you had probably 6 or 8 folks going at it. And they were really going at it. So that was stage one. No word on anything, any response from either side or from the OPP, or Ontario Provincial Police, or anything like that. We haven't got any kind of response from them yet. The other incident happened when it was dark, after the match was over, and one of the capos for the Toronto FC in the supporters section decides that he is so mad after an exchange with Mark Anthony Kaye that he throws his megaphone from the capo stand and it lands on the pitch at BMO Field. Once again, videos out there. That's how mad folks are right now in Toronto. The capo is chucking his megaphone at Mark Anthony Kaye. That's where you are right now in the state of affairs with Toronto. You lose in the Can Champ to CF Montreal, and you use your megaphone as a projectile. You can hit the trigger on a megaphone and use it as a weapon. You can say what you want that way, that kind of a weapon. But you decide, all right, I got to check this out. All right, so let me see. If I want to buy a megaphone these days, how much am I spending on a megaphone? How much am I spending on a megaphone? Megaphone.fm pricing. Oh, no, that's an online thing. Legitimately, I need the megaphone. I need a megaphone itself. Shop megaphones at a low price. Okay. So here's the price of your megaphones. He should. He absolutely should. And so should the dudes that were in the fight. A megaphone with a siren, you can pick it up for $67. You can pick up a sports megaphone that has various and sundry things that are available to them, anywhere from $54 to $111. The Amplivox sound system 25-watt lightweight megaphone you can get for $262. So what that capo did, other than being an idiot, and I'm not even going to allege that he's an idiot, because you see him chuck the megaphone. First off, you yell at Mark Anthony Kaye. Yes, it was a back and forth. Yes, you're mad. I get it. But in your being mad, you decide, after you've had your say and you've given Mark Anthony Kaye what for, as we say here in the South, WHATFER, what for? You've given him what for? You called him everything except a child of God and a sewing machine. You decide that you're that mad after a loss to CF Montreal that you are going to take your megaphone, currently purchasable from anywhere from $54 to $262, and you're going to throw it at Mark Anthony Kaye. And it took a couple of hops on that turf at BMO. There's not a whole lot of bounce that's associated with it. Didn't come anywhere close. There wasn't a whole lot of loft on it. Just kind of chucked his megaphone at Mark Anthony Kaye. To Nix's point, dude should be banned from all stadiums in Canada. Absolutely. And I'm hoping that those who know him in the supporters groups, after they might have attempted to calm him down and keep him from throwing said megaphone, will turn him in. You can't do that kind of stuff. You can't. You can't. And anyone in that supporters section that lets this slide, I'm just going to use the word disappointing, that you think that's acceptable. When it came across on social media last night, and it's like, in the throne megaphone, new hashtag, throne megaphone. Basically, everybody's like, wait, what? And then the video shows up. You knew the fights had happened earlier. You see the capo, and obviously the video's a little shaky, and it's someone on a phone, and they're, doing what they can. But, yeah, megaphone gets chucked. There should be some. There should absolutely be some self-policing, Abby. Abby says there should be some self-policing in supporters groups. As I said, you would hope in this case that the supporters groups, those that were in that end zone, will tell the OPP, Toronto FC, anybody else needs to know who the guy is. Can't have that. You can't. You cannot. Abby says that United has it. Warn them that whatever cannot be done. Yeah, and Kefsi, agree completely. Should be a known quantity, too, as a capo. Yeah, absolutely. So, so that's what, that was the more interesting element in all of this. And the video has been taken down, by the way. Rudy Schuler had the video last night. Yeah, Mark Anthony K. And for those who are looking for any of the video, I'm sure it's out there. Rudy Schuler has a bit of a timeline. After the game, Mark Anthony K gets into a verbal confrontation with a megaphone-wielding supporter on a capo stand behind the South goal. Yeah, megaphone was thrown. And then you had the fight in the away supporters section. Schuler says, given the location, it's hard not to assume that the away fans were attacked by some TFC supporters. So it's embarrassing. It is absolutely embarrassing. It is absolutely shameful. But, yeah, Rudy Schuler had the thoughts. Yes, OPP, yeah, you know me. That is exactly correct, Tom Russo. That is absolutely correct. Yeah, so, yeah. So that's what you had last night in the Canadian Championship. And congratulations to Toronto for having a fantastic night on and off the field at BMO Field in Toronto. Like I said, don't know anything else out of that yet. So we'll see if there's anything else that's been attached to that storyline. But yeah, keep an eye on it. And the page that the Throne megaphone existed on does not exist anymore. So I'm sure it's out there. You can probably find ways to get around it. But yeah, embarrassing things last night in Toronto. Well, but Tom admits that Tom and I'm probably a little older than Tom. But Tom says, John, I'm just realizing there's probably a ton of folks here who don't get that reference, LOL. But that's the beauty of this show is that what we probably should do, and like I said, I mean, I've been thinking about this, for 7 seasons now, that we probably at some point, nope, Abby, you're always 39. We probably should have some kind of annotated SDH pop up on the website. Now, this is why we need producers. An annotated SDH pop up later in the afternoon after the show airs, explaining references that I make. Yeah, we do need footnotes most of the time. That is true. And I'll raise my hand and say that I'm the one responsible for it. So something of an annotated SDH that shows up and explains where Nelson was going with a particular comment, where the comments were coming from a particular response. But yes, OPP, you know me. I'm right there with you, Tom. That is, that's kind of how we operate. There's nothing wrong, absolutely nothing wrong with naughty by nature. Nothing wrong with naughty by nature. So, if you started something, I'm just going to go ahead and go here. I'm going to go ahead and drop the reference, and I'll put it in the Twitch pitch for those. Yes, yeah, Jarrett's definitely. So that's what you're staring at. Yeah, we do a pop-up video. Actually, David, that would actually be that'd be a pretty good thing. That'd be pretty cool. We did pop-up videos. So, if you started out with Treach going, OPP, how can I explain it? I'll take it frame by frame it to have y'all jumping, shouting, saying it. O is for other, P is for people, scratch your temple, the last P, that's not so simple, huh? And then the lyrics go sideways. So, yes, OPP, you know me. It's OPP time, other people's, but you get it. So there it is. Who's down with OPP? All the homies. That's what you're staring at. Yeah, MTV News is gone. Yeah, after 36 years. And for those of us, once again, of a certain vintage, who, when we saw either Tabitha Soren or Kurt Loder pop up with MTV Breaking News, you knew something was serious. You knew something was serious with MTV News when they popped up with the breaking news and the spinning square of MTV. You knew something was serious. And the whole rocking the vote thing. But yeah, 36 years at MTV News. And frankly, because MTV hasn't shown videos in so damn long, I didn't even know that MTV News, frankly, still existed. And I apologize to anyone who's associated with MTV News up until the time that we were told that MTV News was no longer going to exist. So, yeah. So you got that. Coming up top of the hour, once again, Dylan Butler, Bart Keeler joining us at 10:30. Jarrett should be joining us for hour number 2 and going through everything that we've been talking about this morning. But, yeah, so Canadian Championship, like I said, no advancement of the story last night about the dude in the thrown megaphone, but we'll know more. Tom, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what the birth certificate says. I'm always older than anybody and everybody. That's just how it is. That is the host in chivalry. I'm older than everybody. I'm older than all of you. I'm older than all of you. Just accept that. Just accept that I'm older than all of you. And just keep going. But no, Tom, I do not have a 6 in front. I have a 5. But let's see. So other stuff yesterday, we had the first leg of Champions League. And initially we got to see and if you haven't seen on multiple fronts, if you have not seen Vinicius Jr. and seen what Vinicius Jr. is capable of, you got to see that yesterday with Real Madrid and Manchester City. That is true because I'm an old fart. That's absolutely true, Abby. I do act as though I am older than all of you. I am an old fud. The resident old fart and fuddy-duddy here on the show and on the network. But yesterday, you got to see Vinicius Jr., and it was a tremendous shot that he launched to give Real Madrid a 1-0 lead. But then you got to see what Kevin De Bruyne and Thierry Henry after the match on the coverage for Paramount Plus. And he said that it was, that he is one of the smartest players he's ever seen. And he's an absolute perfectionist. And Henry was discussing where Kevin De Bruyne, we're getting into Haaland's dad. We're going to get that in just a sec. Where Kevin De Bruyne, Thierry Henry mentioned that he's got to be one of those perfectionists where everything has to be right and he gets mad in practice when things aren't. It's like, and then when he sits down, he's got everything laid out a certain way. You pick up his pen, you move his pen, you don't put it back. And then Henry's like, and Kevin De Bruyne would be like, no, what are you doing with my pen? Put my pen back. But you got to see the genius of Kevin De Bruyne and just the three-dimensional thought. I mean, dude's playing Vulcan chess out there. Absolutely tremendously talented player and one of the smartest dudes in the room right now. And it's a 1-1 draw after 90 minutes. Basically, you don't want to lose it. You don't want to lose the first leg, so you're having to climb back for the second leg. 1-1 heading back to the Etihad. I think Manchester City could not be in any better shape to advance to a final. The other half of it, obviously, is today. And getting into the numbers for that one in Champions League today, you're looking at AC Milan and Inter. Inter is a road dog at a plus 150. 90-minute draws a plus 210, which is where I think this is going to go. And I think that AC Milan is a plus 217. You've actually got early juice boxes on the reverse fixture. Manchester City favored at a minus 161 a week from today. Remember, Inter and AC Milan play 6 days from now. They play next Tuesday, Wednesday. So since Real Madrid and Manchester City played on Tuesday, they get the extra day because they didn't get the extra day in the first leg. So AC Milan, Inter, 3 o'clock. Inter is a plus 150 on the board. But we got to see the absolute genius of Kevin De Bruyne yesterday. Ricky, very interesting how each half one team was dominant and the other team's one good chance was the goal. Absolutely. Coco, Vinicius Jr. showed he's in the top 5 players in the world right now. Ricky used to be so down on Vinicius like 3 seasons ago, but he's exploded into one of the best. Camavinga also, but he's playing on a yellow. And so, I mean, you got the yellow and just you end up with a yellow from Camavinga. Yeah, absolutely. When he's on, he's one of the most unstoppable in the world. Used to be so on and off, but he's gotten so much more consistent. Yeah, not even 23. Yeah, both of the goals were absolute bangers. Tom, you are absolutely 100% correct. 100% correct. And news that came out before the show this morning, did you see Sergi Busquets is leaving Barcelona after 18 years? Leaving at the end of his contract in June. He says it's been an unforgettable journey. 34 years old, making over 700 appearances. Didn't say where he's going to go next, but Spanish reports say that he might be moving to Saudi Arabia. Xavi wanted the midfielder to stay next season, but said the decision was up to him. Long thought in a favor to be a move to Major League Soccer at the end of the Barcelona contract. Inter Miami was one of the teams that was mentioned. However, in recent days, linked to the Spanish media to a move to the Saudi Arabian top flight. That's from our friends at Agence France Presse. Vinny, Haaland, and Mbappe frontline. Ricky, give it a couple of years. Now, what Nix was talking about yesterday was Alf-Inge Haaland got escorted from his VIP seat after the goal celebration at Real Madrid. Says he was escorted. Once again, this is from our friends at The Guardian. Escorted from his seat at the Bernabeu because Real Madrid fans were not happy with his celebrations following De Bruyne's second-half equalizer. Images posted on social media appeared to show Erling Haaland's father mocking the home fans before being removed from a VIP box by Madrid security. He tweeted, okay, Real Madrid was not happy. We were celebrating the KDB goal. Other than that, we had to move because Real Madrid fans were not happy with 1-1. The Norwegian smiled, waved at the crowd below him in the stands, cupping his ears before being escorted away. That's the Guardian's version of it. Sam Wallace at The Telegraph says that Alf-Inge Haaland has denied allegations of, quote, throwing peanuts, end quote. Literally, like allegedly chucking peanuts from his seat after he was removed from his seat. Video on social media showed waving to Real Madrid fans, cupping his ear before being escorted out of his hospitality seat. Allegations that food was thrown from the box in which Alf was sitting Although no evidence emerged to suggest that was the case, he denied throwing food, said that that security moved his group to a different location within the Bernabeu. Madrid Extra has the cupping of the ear picture. Alfie Holland says, okay, I did not true. We had some good banter with Madrid fans. They were not happy when City scored, typical. Then we had to move 50 meters away, nothing more, all happy, well, nearly, and then the winking emoji. So, and then there's video from Sky Sports News of Holland, the dad, being removed from his seat. Still an expectation that Erling Haaland will play some of his career at Real Madrid. 21 touches in the game, fewest of any of the 22 players who started the match. Pep Guardiola hinted he may make some adjustments to try to get his top scorer more involved next time around. Quote, it's not easy to find the spaces for Erling. Maybe we just try to adjust something in the second leg to be a little bit more fluid and find more rhythm because we play at home, and at home we feel more comfortable with our people. Meanwhile, an angry Carlo Ancelotti claims that City's equalizer should have been ruled out because the ball went out of play in the build-up to the goal. Quoting Ancelotti, the ball was out of play. I don't understand why they did not use VAR to check it. We could easily have won. We controlled the game well after scoring. We played well. Footage from BN showed the ball had gone out of play, although the accuracy of the footage is not verified. BN showed the ball was off the pitch. Ancelotti said technology said it, and I don't understand why VAR didn't check it. The referee, Artur Diaz, didn't pay attention to many things tonight. So there you go. I don't know if VAR can check something over off to the side like that. I don't think that that's something that's there. All of you are sitting there and looking at your prospective Real Madrid futures. Ricky, please fulfill my dream of the Vinny Haaland Mbappe front line, supported by the Camavinga, Chumani, Bellingham midfield. Abby getting into the Saudis discussion. I couldn't go play in a country where the people are not equal. All the sports washing and not much protest of it. Well, I mean, and Tom, to be honest, I was going to say Nick's VAR can't make a touchline call. When it comes to sports washing, I think in general, what you're seeing is from fans. If you're winning, you ain't going to say nothing. I mean, I'm sure that fans in Newcastle, and I know that Alex is a Newcastle fan, but I mean specifically fans that attend matches on a weekly basis. Those that show up at St. James's Park, go to the matches, they're seeing Newcastle in European football. And that's what they're seeing right now. That's literally what they see. Winning will keep you from looking at a lot of things. And I think that's the case right now. What we're seeing in Manchester, what we're seeing in Newcastle, what we're seeing with PSG, except in Champions League, those kinds of places. So, and that's Ricky, who's going to care if Messi goes to Saudi Arabia? His legacy isn't going to be affected, and what it's now up to $1 billion euro offer, I think. That's the key. I don't care. From a viewing standpoint, I don't watch CR38 in the Saudi Pro. I'm not going to watch Messi in the Saudi Pro. Not interested. And Abby, and so, okay. So, all right. So what we will do, Abby, is in the Ask Bart reffing down here segment, ball going totally out. All right. So, all right. I will hold on to this and we will talk about it. No, I don't think it's a good idea either. So, no, I don't think it's a good idea, but that's not going to stop folks from doing those kinds of things. So, yeah, there you go. Coming up, in theory, it is Bart Keeler. Bart will be here for reffing down here at 10:30, waiting to see if If Dylan Butler from MLSsoccer.com and OSDB Sports can join us for his traditional Wednesday window and to come and hang out with us, unless he is completely and totally swamped with high school stuff. And the answer to that is no, he's not swamped with high school stuff, because I get to see when folks kind of pop up and I get a noise that shows up in my ear. So it is Wednesday. It is 10 o'clock. And that means that I mess with technology in the off chance that I can punch buttons and make sure guests show up like this one. Beat 2, 3, 4. What's the mug, Dylan?
We're going some Yankees baseball.
Okay. So for those of us that aren't really following baseball, how are the Yankees doing this year, by the way?
Listen, it's okay because I'm not either right now. Okay. There's like 700 games in a season. I don't really pay attention until certainly until the high school season's done with, and I don't know. There's so many different things in my headspace right now. So
yes, that is absolutely true.
Coaches parting ways with teams, Open Cup champion, Canadian Classique, and the Can Champ, all kinds of stuff going on.
Well,
every week that's not beer sponsored. So
yes, well, and we're getting into a weekend that is not beer sponsored here on the show, but in hour number 1, we got into Open Cup last night, and we also got into the throwing of megaphones in Toronto and fights with ultras and things like that. Yeah. I cannot say, I can't say with any great certainty that I have ever had thrown megaphone on my bingo card for an event at a soccer match. And that happened last night at Mark Anthony K.
Yeah, no. You're right. I mean, there's been, unfortunately, there's been bottles and cups thrown. There's been insults hurled.
Yes.
Never a megaphone. And honestly, like for me, like if I'm Mark Anthony K in that situation, I take that megaphone and I probably yell some not so nice things at the people who threw it at me, which maybe gets me fined. I don't know, but.
Well, but and what would have been the ultimate turnaround is if after that megaphone was chucked, that he did go and grab the megaphone, and then he just starts saying things in that megaphone. I've got your somewhere between $54 and $260 purchase, and I'm using it, and I'm yelling at you because you decided to throw it. Yeah. And frankly, that dude doesn't need to be, not Mark Anthony K, but the dude with the megaphone. He doesn't need to be in any stadium, frankly, either in Canada or the United States anymore. And I hope that those who are with him in the supporters group call him out, name who it is, and that his time in watching matches is done.
Yeah, no, almost goes without saying, but yes, 100% true about that. But I was on last night for MLS, so like I had splitting up duties. What was it, eight matches in the U.S. Open Cup, but also I had the Canadian Classique matchup, and listen, I'm a huge Canadian Classique fan. Like I love those games. Everyone talks about LAFC, and it is the best derby right now in the league. And there's some great historical ones as well, and we'll have another one of those as well with the California Classico right on Sunday. Yep. But it's just like it's different cultures. It's two cities in any sport who don't like each other. Two cities who just don't like each other, period. So I think it adds to it for sure. And then it's always something wild, right? And even last night, like Montreal comes out in Toronto and just steps all over them, right, in the first half. And probably, if you want to look up definition of how to score on a counterattack, look up their first goal, because it was like perfect. I mean, from the moment of of the blocked free kick straight down the field. You score, and then a terrific service from I believe it was Sean Ware to offer, right, and now it's 2-0. And Toronto were probably like 5 seconds away from being booed off the pitch at halftime, if not for an Insigne goal that brings it back. So now you're like, what does that do in the second half? Does it bring them back in the match? Like crazier things have happened between these two, but Montreal did the job. They held on, and I think it's just a perfect. I don't know if it's hard to sort of like. I think a knockout game is more important than a regular season match, right? But it kind of serves as an appetizer now, right, for Saturday's game, and it switches over to Stade Saputo. So,
yep, ZBG and Namdi 04 made it 2-0. Insigne makes it 2-1. That's how it wraps up. In Open Cup, we were talking about.
By the way, sorry, John.
Yeah,
this really, like, now the road, and again, just like the Open Cup, the Canadian Championship gives you that ticket to the Champions League, right? So because that was an all MLS quarterfinal, which is rare, and you had an all Canadian Premier League quarterfinal in the other, which went to PKs, won by it was Ottawa, right? I think beating Forge.
Yep.
Now the door opens wide for Montreal, if they can avoid the cup set, to be 90 minutes away from getting to the Champions League.
Oh, it was the other way. Forge won in frame 6. They won in the sixth.
Right. Forge. So yeah, that's right. Forge took the lead, and then Atletico Ottawa. Or Atletico Ottawa.
Yes.
Pulled it back, and then they went to PKs and Forge won. Yeah, but not the most. You were about to talk about the Open Cup, but not the most dramatic PK situation. A couple good ones in the Open Cup last night.
Well, but LAFC can't get out of their own way, man. I mean, we talked about their lineup last night and the average age, and I'm sure that the keeper boosted that year average 21.7.
I was going to say it was not a drinking legal drinking age average.
No. And so now that Chirondolo drives the bus, or he's the one who is the chaperone in charge of everybody to make sure everything is okay. But
everybody got Happy Meals after the game. And
yes, they absolutely did. And I mean, they can't get out of their own way in trying to prepare for Champions League, because they end up winning in PKs, and they're on to the round of 16 by beating Monterey Bay.
Yeah, no. And listen, they had it. It was wrapped in a bow in at the end of regulation, right? All they had to do was just hold on. And then Monterey Bay levels, and then it's US Open Cup after dark, which I think Cup after dark generally trumps MLS after dark.
Yeah, I mean, because you had Clint Irwin.
That was one of the ones I was on. For me, that was the match of the night. That you had so much in that match. I mean, I'm not even going to begin to try to. You can pronounce his name from Minnesota.
Longwane.
Scores he looked like the greatest player in MLS history with his goals, and then the assist. And now Colorado looks like they're running away, and then Kai Wagner pulls them back twice. This was it was, and maybe this is just Philly. Maybe they just play this way, but this is reminiscent of MLS Cup, right? Where twice at the death, sudden. Although it was the other way around, right? Where LAFC pulled back, but this was, one goal better than the next, and now it goes to PKs. And when Blake makes the first save, oh, that's it. It's going to be Phillies, and then Irwin makes a save, and then he makes another one, and incredible stuff in that one, Colorado Philly, and you got to imagine at some point, Jim Curtin maybe in the 108th minute was we don't really need this.
No,
couldn't we have, even if we lost in regulation, could we have just just gone 90. Do we need
Yeah,
120 and
and that's
PKs?
what I'm thinking. Cherundolo's thinking the same thing too. He's
But at
like,
least, he rolled out a U10 team. You know,
yes, that is absolutely true. But yeah, it was crazy. I mean, Lungwane on the first one where he goes screaming down the left hand side, pulls the air brake not once but
yeah,
twice,
yeah.
and gets it in for his first goal. And he hadn't. I mean, and he came in as a sub and gets 2 and is active in all 3. And then there was the moment. There was the moment when it was 3-2, and you have the injury on the near side, and it didn't even look like a legit injury. And so the physios are treating the player off the pitch, and they're looking at him, and then you get the throw, and then it's like you're a man down because they're treating the injury, and then you end up with the equalizer. And you're going, what is going on here?
I think the only thing that you missed in that one, like that would have just brought it full circle, is if somehow a dog runs on the pitch, right? Like that's the only thing you were missing in that one. But then again, that's more CONCACAF than
Yes,
Open Cup. But
that's true. Or
um,
was it in Finland where the kid came on the tricycle recently?
right, right.
I mean,
Um, but that, yeah, I mean, that was such a fun one. And then you had cup sets,
yeah.
right?
I mean, I mean, you had Inter Miami with the 3 bumper goal to give them the win over Charleston, and
Yes.
then Bob Lilly over New England 1-0. So Bob Lilly and Bruce Arena, who to me just seem like 2 of the grumpiest old dudes on any. And this is like independent of each other. I mean, if you watch USL Championship and you're watching the Pittsburgh Riverhounds at Highmark, by the way, cool venue right on the river. And Bob Lilly just seems like nothing is going right for him. It's like he had to his car died on the drive to the stadium, and he was in the middle of nowhere, and he's called for an Uber, and the first Uber won't satisfy everything because he's packed for the game and everything. You know, he's got the balls in the back and the cones and all of the. So the first Uber comes, and it's like a compact car, and it's not going to fit everything. And so Lilly's has to order the Uber all over again. And he finally gets the van that he needs to get to the game. And then he's just surly the entire time. And this is on
The
a normal.
driver just the driver just constantly talking to him, and he's like, I don't really
Yes.
want to talk. He's like,
Yeah.
please give me 5 stars. Like,
Yes, and that's what and then Lilly shows up at the game, and this is on a daily basis. This is on a game-by-game basis. Bob Lilly never looks happy. And then you have Bruce Arena for New England, who never looks happy. And so you had 2 guys who never look happy, regardless of what's happening out there on the field for their team. And so you have 2 unhappy guys whose teams are playing each other, and you end up with Pittsburgh getting the win at Gillette. Are you kidding me? And I still think Bob Lilly is going to be upset about it.
sure. I mean, he had to go on the road, right? It's a late night. Maybe he doesn't like Patriot Place too much. Who knows? Maybe the restaurant was closed by the time he was done.
It's like, I was looking forward to going to Toby Keith's, and now you tell me it's closed. And now it's like, so how
That's a good spot. That's a good shout right there. That's I've been to Patriot Place a bunch. That's a good shout right there.
And so now Bob Lilly moves on in the round into the round of 16, and it was absolutely crazy. And you end up with new coach bounce, which we'll get into now, because you end up with Red Bulls getting a win. You end up with Chicago getting a win under new guys, unless you call Frank Klopas a new guy for the 3rd time. New coaches in Chicago and Red Bulls who got wins last night in Open Cup, and it's new coaches for different reasons now, staring at teams that are moving on to the round of 16.
Yeah. And you know what? I think I kind of feel like that was a perfect situation at Red Bull, because you were looking at the possibility, and it will be the first MLS match, but you were looking at a Hudson River Derby match as your first one in charge, with, not like NYCFC are world beaters right now, but they're certainly in better form than Red Bull, right? So to get that win over an old foe in DC. Yeah, that's got to feel really good, right? Going into that match. It was interesting to hear. It was actually really weird, looking back at the press releases and the press conferences. It started with Struber just sort of being like, this was going to be in the mix, and missed my family, and it wasn't a great situation, so I'm out. Of course, nothing to do with the results, right? Like, it's not like you guys have struggled, or nothing to do, of course, with the way that you handled a really bad situation.
Mm-hmm.
And then it comes out a little bit more about, yeah, the results weren't what we wanted, and then
Mm-hmm.
and then uh, and then the admission to that, this is who we're going with the rest of the year. So uh, no MLS experience, lower level experience, but he's familiar with the team and the group, and he's been there for since what, 2012? No, 2020. Sorry, 2022.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know. Who knows what to make of this. I was having a joke on our Slack channel, with the other editors, like they should just do like an alumni coaching committee,
Mm-hmm.
and have John Walniak, and have like Amado Guevara, and like have a whole bunch of dudes, like you know. Although, I mean, the one that would have really been awesome was if Thierry Henry came
Oh.
back. And then you look forward to the Atlantic Cup, Henry and Rooney, like
Oh.
on the touchline. That would
Ooh.
be fun. But
Oh. And
c'est la vie, as he would probably say.
or well, it might be closer to C'est la guerre in that case if you're chasing after a cup. Then in Chicago, Black Monday continued
Yeah,
with Ezra Hendrickson getting fired, and it was just that one. You're
that's
sitting,
more surprising.
you're going now. Really, you seriously? Uh, Ezra, because of what's, I mean, the issues, and we went over the salary figures, and somebody is standing out like a sore thumb in the salary structure of Chicago Fire, and the rate of return versus amount of outlay for Big Shaq. It's like 7.8 million, I think base, and you ain't getting nothing from him, and all in the front office moves. Yeah, great. You sold Slanina, you sold Duran, but you haven't invested that money back and gotten anything in return. This seems more above Ezra Hendrickson than it does Ezra Hendrickson.
Listen, the roster isn't a roster that can compete in MLS, right? Like, well, at least with Red Bull, if you go with like the nerdy stat kind of stuff, like their XG and all that kind of stuff, like their expected goals were high,
Mm-hmm.
and they weren't getting those goals. So that's performance based, right?
Right.
Chicago, it's more of, yeah, this is who they kind of are.
Mm-hmm.
Like their roster isn't a playoff caliber roster.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is that Ezra Hendrickson building it exclusively? No, of course not.
Yeah.
So you're right, in that sense, and um, obviously the scapegoat here, right? Like, and even that said, and listen, this game is about close moments and little things that change games. But how many of these games now where they were a minute away from getting 3 points or getting a point, right? Like, and he was obviously incredibly frustrated a couple of weeks ago, maybe realizing the heat was on, detailing the inability to defend on these late corners,
Yep.
right? And 3 matches where, if they get points from those, if they clear that ball in those situations, they go from below the playoff line to like 4th or 5th.
Mm-hmm.
So you do feel for him. Seemed like he was a well-liked coach in general. But yeah, on the on the leaderboard of, and we've spoke about it a few times, on the leaderboard of hot seats.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised about Struber, but I am surprised with Ezra. I didn't see him as like one of the top 2 or 3 to go.
And Jason Nix is asking, does Ezra getting sacked affect the U20 releases, do we think?
I don't know.
And that's the thing. It's like, it just completely depends. I know it's.
I will say this. I will say this though about the U20. Generally, like I think these players should be released, and I think it should be a FIFA thing.
Yeah.
Like it's not the World Cup, but it's an aged World Cup, and it's a significant age, right? We're not talking about like the U17s or like this is a U20 World Cup. I think these guys should be released, and in the Olympics too. Like this is ridiculous that you know this isn't a situation where players where you have to release them. So I feel like that's something that should change in the future.
Yeah, Caleb Wiley is. I saw that Aronson is not from.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like it's so hard to. It's a club by club determination. Like it shouldn't be that way.
And so you're sitting there, and it's like, what do you think best would benefit the growth of the player? And it makes sense that it would sit there and say they need to go to the U20 World Cup to represent their country. And it's looking like right now that with the yeses, the yeses and the nos and the maybes, that the United States will not be sending their best group, their best starting 11, best 18. It will not be 1 through 18 that will be going to this U20 competition as of right now, and that is the only detriment to that, other than to your country's result, is to those players who would love to have this experience, would love to represent their country, and at the same time would have that on their resume. Hey, man, look what I've been able to do, and it helps the player, and it would help the team financially if you want to move the player on at any given point.
Well, that was the point I was about to say, 100%, right? Like, so especially for the MLS teams, it's been detailed, and there's so many great examples, and you mentioned Slonina before, right? Like of you develop your young talent, and you sell them off to usually a European-based team.
Yeah.
These scouts are watching the U20 World Cup, right? Like you've got a better chance of selling that player off by having them showcase in a World Cup than you do, on a Tuesday night in Charlotte.
Because I mean, if you're at the U20 World Cup and you're watching all of those dudes, I mean, legitimately. All right, so where is the U20 World Cup? Do you know off the top of your head as I sit here and search for it really quickly while you get the
I do know. Sorry.
Well, keep going, keep sipping with the. Keep sipping. Let's see. So U20 World Cup, where is it going to be? Argentina. That's right, because it got reassigned. So it's in Argentina. If you are in the 2023 U20 World Cup, and you're in Argentina, and you're a big muckety muck for an international club, what is going to make you think, regardless of the league we're talking here, that insert soccer executive extraordinaire who is in Argentina watching the U20 World Cup is going to sit there, grab their mobile device, and go, I think I'll dial up MLS Season Pass, and I'll watch the players that, no, that is not going to be the case.
Well, what it is though, John, it's that it's like that next level confirmation.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're already dialing up MLS Season Pass, and they already have an idea of these younger guys, right? Like you mentioned Wiley before, right? Or a Cowell, right? Yeah. In San Jose, they already have that film,
right?
But now I haven't seen him in an international competition on the biggest stage. How do they perform there?
Yeah.
And that's just again added affirmation, added like that's likely what would get a player over the top. You play really well in the World Cup, you're good to go.
You get those chances. I think the The Union players are have been cleared to go. Caleb Wiley's been cleared to go. But like I said, the biggest name for me that hadn't been cleared was Aronson. And I'm like, excuse me? And it's just, it made less than no sense. But, once again, not necessarily a surprise sometimes when it comes to folks and understanding the larger picture. You mentioned the rivalry that is beer sponsored, but not on the show. And
I don't think it's even beer sponsored off the show. I don't know. I think it's.
Did they pull it away finally? And it's just like, because not every game is tied to a rivalry this week, although there are some. Your Canadian your Can Champ matchup that had the thrown megaphone is going to get a rematch this weekend at Stade Saputo now, where I don't know if they could throw the bell. I think that'd be kind of cumbersome.
Pretty heavy.
If things continue to go south for Toronto, where is Bob Bradley on the heatometer, you think? Is he still like locked in, cool? MLSC's like, do your thing, we'll just spend more money. Where do you think Bob Bradley is right now?
Oh, it's a great question. Like, I don't know if he's had. I don't know. It's a tough one because on one side I'm wrestling with this, because on one side I'm like, has he had enough time to build his roster up?
Right. Yeah.
Right. It wasn't very good before he got there. And then I kind of feel like, their biggest signings were a little bit above his head, right? Like, hey, Bob, here's who we're getting.
Yeah.
So, but also, similar, kind of similar to Shaq in Chicago, when you sign those guys, like now you're putting so much money into those two guys that it's less everywhere else, right?
The back line.
100%. And that hasn't been. Now he does wear two hats.
Yeah.
So he is a decision maker here. How much is he hamstrung financially because of the two other guys? I mean, it's a good question. But you're right. Their most pressing need in the preseason is still their most pressing need, and it was a pressing need last season. So,
yeah.
I would think, like, I hate to see guys go, like, get 2 years and you're out, or but yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, they've made quicker decisions in Toronto before, right? We saw that with Armas. So
I mean, if it's not quite Ty Willingham and Notre Dame, but but once again, it speaks to folks that want to spend money and having cap space and all this kind of other stuff. Before you go,
I would have had Lasana on that hot seat if not for this most recent run of form.
Absolutely. Other rivalries, you've got Copa Tejas with Austin hosting Dallas. And you've also got Cali Classico this weekend as your Sunday night game on FS1.
Derby.
Peter Vermes got the stay. Once again, the reason that you should never bet on Major League Soccer.
I always say that.
And he goes and thumps Seattle. And obviously we'll have Nico Moreno later on in the week to talk about it from the Seattle perspective. But Peter Vermes gets the stay. You talk about guys with more than one role.
Yeah.
Peter Vermes is like, okay, you're last. You're hanging around there with LAG at the bottom of the West. Oh, by the way, I'm just going to, thump Seattle and make the whole thing more confusing in Kansas City.
Yeah, and listen, a couple things for him, right? He had all his DPs on the field for the first time since 2021. They all contributed to goals in this one. Eric Tommy finally gets a goal. Alan Polito gets his first goal in the league since 2021.
1974, Alan Polito.
He did score in the Open Cup. And what does that do for them, right? Like, and listen, this is a forgiving league. If you can reel off 4 straight wins in this league, suddenly you go from worst to probably playoff line or above. So, he said in his post-match press conference, listen, I've preach patience here, and I believe in our guys, and they haven't given up, and all that kind of fun stuff. But they needed a result, right? Like you can do all those things, but there needs to be the reward at the end of it, and they did get that, and kind of one of the more unlikely places to get it, but they got it.
No doubt. What's up with OSDB and with MLSsoccer.com?
Good question. I mean, it's just it's more of the same.
High school.
Yeah, I have a girls lacrosse game tomorrow night where I have a call with one coach today at 1, and the other coach I've not heard from yet. So
been there.
That could be an interesting one. And then I have a big one on Saturday. It's called Reegs Rock. It's between Chaminade and Manhasset, and it's really cool because it's in memory of Sergeant James Regan, who was a Manhasset resident who played at Chaminade. He then went on and played at Duke. 9/11 happened, and he said, "I got to go. I've got a different calling here." He went into the Army Rangers, and ultimately, gave his life for his country. So it's one of those really cool games where it's important for the next generation of players to remember that his jersey number wasn't retired, but it's given to a guy in his memory each year at Chaminade, which is also a pretty cool thing. So that'll be a fun one on Saturday. It's always one of the more meaningful games on the Long Island lacrosse calendar. So that'll be a good one on Saturday at 2 on Varsity Media on YouTube.
What he said, because I was going to say Varsity Media on YouTube. Dylan, as always, Dylan_Butler on the Twitters. We will catch up with you and get the full high school update, the full MLS update for rivalries that are no longer sponsored by beer, that have a red
coffee, maybe.
There you go. And as he continues to sip from his Yankees mug, we'll catch up with you next week, my friend.
All right, buddy.
All right, Dylan is out, so that means the hot tag happens, and we bring in both Bart and Jarrett for the final half hour of the show.
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning. First question for you, Bart, was how was the weekend? We know how it was on the pitch, but how was the weekend otherwise, sir?
Oh, when you're that close to the beach, it's always a good weekend. It was a lot of relaxing, but busy fun. It was great.
Well, and did I read correctly that you got you had a knight in shining armor help you out?
I did, thanks to Abby for we were leaving the game on Saturday, and the Uber situation was a little bit of a mess, and it was kind of hard to get one. So Abby was like, "Well, I have my car here. You want to ride home from me?" I was like, "Oh my gosh, yes!" So I have officially been in the Abstermobile, and she was very nice to give us that ride back to our condo.
There you go. And I guess secondarily, how are the plans coming for the Women's World Cup? How is your travel plan shaping up for that? Since we're like,
well, they're great. We have all the tickets to the U.S. games that we need. We've got the flights to and from Australia. Just trying to figure out what exactly our travel plans are, between matches, because there's several days in between the U.S. matches. We got to figure out where we want to go and who we want to see.
That is absolutely true, and we also have to figure out your broadcast plans for when you're down there as our official correspondent down there in Australia and New Zealand, and we'll see how that plays out. Traditionally, as what we always do, is that we always go with reffing down here with the hashtag, and there was one thing that popped up this morning, and I don't know how long you've been hanging out with us. We were discussing the ball going totally out of play on the touchline and ARs and all this kind of stuff from Champions League with Carlo Ancelotti saying the ball was all the way out and all this kind of stuff. And, you can't have VAR review something like that. So in Champions League reffing down here, Abby's asking if the ball goes totally out as the rule of play. Many times ARs call the ball out, and according to rule of play, it really wasn't out. Ask Bart. So what's the deal with the ball rolling out of play and looking at it? Is that specifically the AR staring at it? Is that center ref? Is that whoever jumps on it first waves their hand? Or
the ball in and out of play is most prominently the job of the assistant referee.
Okay.
The center referee obviously is the one who has to make the call physically, but the AR should be looking at that, and that's their secondary duty to the offside line, which now is almost not even their duty anymore. So it really should, they are the ones watching it, but for an AR, we're instructed to not put that flag up until you know that 100% of the ball is 100% over the line. And I think in that situation for the Man City game, I think it's a valid gripe that Real Madrid fans have, but it was. I see why it wasn't called on the field, because it was not just an inch out, because it kind of it did look like it was an inch or two out, but it was that plus De Bruyne, I think it was De Bruyne, saving it on the line, which always complicates things because you probably got body parts in the way. Because it's in the air and it wasn't like super right next to the line, it's hard to tell. There's a lot of factors that made that call difficult. So I don't take any away from the AR for missing something like that, because it is hard to see. And again, we're not putting our flag up unless we're 100% sure that 100% of the ball is 100% over the line.
And you have athletes who are traveling at roughly 22 miles.
Yeah, they're going fast, John.
Last time I checked, they ain't my speed, and trying to make sure that something
right. And the ball isn't either.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. Jarrett, your first question for Bart at the at SoccerForUS PODs at Bartimus Prime 19, as we have reffing down here on a Wall Pass Wednesday.
Yeah, how often do you have to explain to people that a ball is round and the ground is flat? So, because we did this during the Men's World Cup with the Japan game, where everybody looks like, I can see space between the bottom of the ball and the line. Y'all realize the ball is a sphere, yeah?
Yep. The ball is a sphere, so if it's touching the grass outside the line, then it still very well could be inside the line. And that, you're exactly right. It's complicated, and again, that's why we are instructed and we hold our flag. Because it needs to be. You have to be 100% sure that is the right call for that situation. And you would rather err on the side of it may have been a little out of play than calling the ball out of play when it was inbounds.
All right, we've held on to this one for a couple days, and it's time, I guess, to talk about and I want to get the full title right, and I want to make sure that I don't miss an adjective or any kind of work here in discussing Armando Villarreal's horrible, no good, very bad.
Yeah.
Actually, was it a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day? I think
all of the above.
I think it's a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day.
It was. So I'll say that it was bad. The only defense I'll give him is, so was the actual soccer being played. That was I think I looked at, we were about 10, 20 minutes in, and I looked at the people I was sitting with, and I was like, does anyone else feel like this is like a U12 rec game? Just it was bad soccer. I'm sorry. And Villarreal did not help that, because I don't think he gave the players a great standard to which they could live up to when it came to fouls and physical contact, because it just seemed Santi Sosa did everything wrong, yet when a Miami player did Miami was getting away with a lot of things. There was a yellow card that should have been given early on for, I forget who it was, but a absolutely nasty challenge on I want to say
was the Sadic tackle in the 27th?
Yeah, it was on Sadic, out on the touchline. I forget who that was from Miami, but that was I was surprised that wasn't a yellow card, given the ferocity with the challenge and how he just completely missed the ball.
And how Kramashi got a yellow on Wiley only a couple minutes before.
Yeah, it was weird, right? And that was kind of the thing that was it wasn't the first foul of the game. It wasn't the first, incident of the game. It was like this, you don't have an excuse of the timing. You've already set that standard. So yeah, it was that one should have been a yellow card. He did get the red card. I think he got the process right. He gave the yellow card immediately because it was like, ooh, that's a bad challenge. And then, when VAR was like, hey, you should look at this, he said, okay. And after a fairly quick review, he was like, yeah, it's a red card.
Yeah. I've got a bunch of different things, and there are moments, and traditionally what we do is
Yeah.
we go through moments. Jarrett, what else is on your checklist in catching up with Bart? As he's thinking.
I mean, I am thinking. Leave me alone. Because I mean, like, I don't know what else to take away in terms of like reffing down here from that game, because it's just bad. Like, it was. I thought one of my favorite things about it was you go through the timeline. It's amazing how mindset shift, because you can go through some timelines, and in the first half, going into halftime, it's a bunch of people going, you didn't end the half cleanly, but you got out of there unscathed. String some stuff together, and this is a game that's definitely winnable. And by the end of it, it was, fire and brimstone, doom and gloom. Everything is bad, and it's just you're just missing. You were missing the teeth, really, to kind of take them to the sword, and you just didn't do it. I don't know what else to add in terms of like the officiating thing. I think y'all covered it. Is just
there are
disappointing. I mean, yeah, there's stuff you can
Jarrett, we should have been up 1-0 at the half. I mean, I hate to lump on him, but like Machop Chol missed a wide open header and didn't even hit the frame. I know that these are, when we talk about XG, the conversation isn't that, oh, you should or shouldn't. It's that obviously you have variables and variants in your finishing abilities, but like that does fall under the category of like, dude, hit the frame, like at least make the goalkeeper make a save type of thing. You can't just completely miss the goal there. And there were others. I mean, Almada had a shot blocked after he's kind of getting into a funky phase of like, I want to say it's more a little bit like Barco, where he's trying to take too many touches instead of just reacting when the ball gets there. But yeah, I mean, we could have easily been up 1-0 at the half, despite playing like absolute dog.
Dog-ish.
Yeah, and then it is frustrating though, because you could have been up 1-0. And like the rest of it, in terms of the officiating side, like it's fine. It's not why you lost the game, certainly.
Absolutely not. In fact, it's one of the reasons you got a chance to win the game at the end, or to tie the game.
And Machop Chol is run like an 18-wheeler through somebody, which it's a weird one. Like I thought the penalty was fine. It's one of those. It's like it's not malicious. It's unfortunate because he takes a heavy touch and ends up chasing it into the path that Machop Chol has chosen to run down. And as a fellow large human being, I can tell you, when we get going, the air brakes don't work the same way they do for smaller people.
No. Yeah. It's not like Monteagle Pass.
He had committed, and unfortunately, it ended up. And I mean, it was absolutely a penalty kick. I mean, I was looking right at it, and I was like, people were trying to. I was like, no, he put his big long leg out and put his body into the guy as a foul.
But what I would like to do is go back into that same minute to a minute and a half of action, and in discussing the horrible, terrible, no good, very bad day, why you don't give a card to Ruiz for basically body checking Andrew Gutman into the signboard. Where I think
that was not your typical two players hustling after a ball at the touchline. That really wasn't. That was, to me, and Joey Logan, also a referee who's an Atlanta United fan, he and I were both on this, that absolutely should have been a foul on Miami coming out. That was, I don't know where or why that was not seen as a foul, because it was after, I mean, it was even after Gutman had kicked it, like what it was. So
I legitimately thought that Gutman had saved it from going over the end line. So at the very least, it was not a corner. It was a throw. It was a deep corner throw, basically, by the corner flag. So I initially thought that Gutman saved it. Then Ruiz body checks him into the signboard head first, and he goes in head first, which to me is something else that was attached to that play. Nothing is called. It ends up as a corner, which creates the sequence, which creates you go A, B, C, D, E penalty, and it goes in. So that to me was something that I was like, okay, that was another red flag as to how horrible, terrible, no good, very bad day was. Did you see? I thought that the Kritsov contact in the box was a handball. Did you?
Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to talk about, because I couldn't see it on like a replay, right? Because Miami wasn't showing that in the stadium.
Right.
But on first review, I was like, that was a handball.
Yeah.
And I haven't been able to see any replays that told me any different than my initial thought.
Okay, so let's get into handball here and the discussion.
If it happens against Miami, it should be called a handball.
Well,
yes,
yeah.
I agree.
Well, and if Brooks,
Atlanta's got some bad luck in Miami, y'all. You think of go back.
Oh my goodness, the Brooks Lennon call last year. Oh well, he was anticipating contact. Yeah,
the Brooks Lennon call didn't piss me off. It's a bad call, and it's Ismail Elfath, who's really good at his job. As far as referees in pro, yes. Ismail Elfath is great at his job. He had a stinker. It happens. It didn't piss me off nearly as much as listening to the mothership of MLS try and start a narrative that Brooks Lennon's a diver and that he searches out contact. Right. That pissed me off so much more than Ismail Elfath missing it, because you start narratives that people are going to pick up and run with, because people actually do listen to what you're having to say. You're not just an entertainment for the sake of being entertainment. People actually do listen to what you're saying, and they are going to take what you say and run with it. So you cannot go out there and slander the damn man like that and then turn around and act like nothing happened. Well, also, go back to 2020 when
the year before,
John Gallagher literally got hit in the face.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the dude didn't even get a card, I don't think.
No. Figal got nothing out of that for basically just punching John Gallagher. Brooks Lennon's apparently a diver now in the eyes of the mothership. And so it's the third year in a row that you get some weird, goofy stuff. When it comes to the idea of a handball, I know a lot of folks, Bart, and this will get into reffing down here. Reffing down here, handball. When it comes to the rules of the game, that book that we talk about, that Dr. Joe says is flexible, even if it is a hardcover. When it comes to handball, what are the parameters now for handball, so folks can understand once and for all what is and what isn't when it comes to the laws of the game?
Well, first off, you've heard the phrase making your body bigger by using the hand, right?
Yeah.
Or using your arm. So that's obviously one thing that, as a referee, we're not judging intent. We're not supposed to. Sometimes you kind of do have to take that into consideration. But when you're talking about a handball, you can't fully judge intent all the time, but you are looking for, did you make your body bigger by extending your arm, extending your hand, whatever that is? And that's the biggest thing, right? Is we're looking for, is your, it used to be unnatural position, but that kind of was a little too fluid, if you will, because that can be interpreted in a lot of different ways of unnatural. I mean, as we discussed a couple weeks ago, the elbow to the back of was that Gigi at that point in time?
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily an unnatural position for a defender to go up like that with their elbows raised, but their use of the elbow after that probably was. So we went from a natural position to making the body bigger. That's kind of where we're at now. After that, it's, did the ball directly contact the hand? That's a big one that we've kind of moved to, as well as we're not looking for just, it made contact, because there are many times where a ball hits something else or someone else, through a deflection. We're trying to get away from that, deflecting into the hand, because again, that's something that a player, even if their arm is slightly outside of their body, it's not really an infraction that they caused, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we are looking for more of a direct contact sequence than, just it hit their hand,
right,
or arm, I should say.
One other element, we do have some breaking news for the SoccerForUS POD side of things. One other thing I wanted to discuss is the Leo Campagna hissy fit, where he spikes the ball and nothing happens. He gets mad and basically takes the ball right.
Yeah, I don't know what that was either.
And he just basically takes the ball and spikes it right in front of Armando Villarreal. Nothing happens. When it comes
Miami got off with they got away with a lot of yellow cards.
Yeah, and
that I was shocked were not given, because they were very, in my opinion, textbook yellow cards. Like, there's no reason why they couldn't have been given for the actions that they committed. I think it's kind of weird that they did not receive more than 2 yellow cards, and one of those was, and they received a red card, but like the red card was a no duh. Miami did a lot of things that game that I was shocked that they got away with without more than just a foul.
So when a player's having a hissy fit, Bart, how do you handle it?
Well, it depends on what the hissy fit is, right? So that hissy fit was kind of built off of a kerfuffle with the player.
Right.
Sometimes, I don't want to say you let them go, but you understand that players are going to get hot after each other. Now, that situation, I felt you could have just justifiably given both guys a yellow card, honestly, because they were both being stupid, they're both acting like, unhinged children.
Yes.
You do want to have that conversation, but that doesn't mean you can't give a yellow card, right? You want to de-escalate the situation. That's your job as the referee in that situation, is to de-escalate. But that doesn't mean you still can't have a conversation like, hey, you need to calm down, or hey, let's keep our heads, let's not make this bigger than it is. And then you say, but what you did right there, spiking the ball, getting up in the player's face, shoving them, all those things, that's worthy of a yellow card, and you can't do that again. Because it was.
Yeah, it was.
And I think you would have been justified. I think it was Parada. You could have been justified giving Parada a yellow card too for all the stuff that led up to it. So he could have just done both. You could have just given it to Campagna. That's what I would have personally done because he deserved it. But I was shocked that there was nothing given there.
All right, time for this. Jeffrey Carlisle, multiple sources are telling the four-letter that the U.S. Soccer Federation is appointing Oguchi Onyewu to a newly created position of VP of Sport. He'll report to Sporting Director Matt Crocker and support all national teams, including hiring of the new USMNT manager, also involved in fundraising. From Carlisle, yes, there is overlap in terms of what Brian McBride did as USMNT GM, but Onyewu's remit will extend beyond the men's programs. The fundraising bit is new as well. So news from...
Yeah. I'm wondering where this leaves Kate Markgraf. I feel like her job has been pretty safe throughout this process as women's GM. Yeah. And maybe she still does that. Maybe Gooch is, again, providing oversight for all of them just to kind of guide. But I think this is... If Matt Crocker's job is still the overall programming of sport for the federation, right? You're still going to involve some sort of not just playing soccer with him. It makes sense to have someone below him who is also helping with those duties. And also, I mean, look, you hired Matt Crocker, who, to be plain, is a very undiverse hire.
Yeah.
Oguchi Onyewu fills a lot of those gaps that Crocker may have. A, he knows the U.S. soccer system very well. B, he is a player of, I think mixed ethnicity. I know for sure African American. I think he may have other ethnicities as well. Speaks multiple languages, which Crocker admitted to saying that was a slight problem in his entry-level press conference, which, again, I don't think is necessarily the job of the sporting director to be multilingual and know every single part of sporting culture in the U.S. So Gooch kind of fills that in. And then C, he is a former player, right? I think it's good. I know this is going to piss a lot of people off, but it is good to have former players in these types of roles because they do understand what it takes to get there. I mean, Matt Crocker doesn't have that level of experience. Oguchi Onyewu does. So that is a plus. And I think that is, I think this is a good hire because you've essentially done the corporate BS of creating a position to put someone in that you really like. And I think there's nothing wrong with that for this particular situation.
Gucci's parents moved to the U.S. from Nigeria to study in D.C. Ethnic Igbo people of Nigeria, 2 brothers, 2 sisters. Also holds Belgian citizenship, speaks English, French, Italian, Portuguese. And so at 6'4", 210 is the second tallest outfield player in U.S. national team history after Omar Gonzalez.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I think it's a good Gooch, there's a reason why he was a finalist for that sporting director job, because he does have experience doing that. It's not as extensive as Crocker. It certainly hasn't been as successful as Crocker, but he does have that. He obviously has a long playing career in a lot of different countries. And I think those things help for the job he's about to do. And I do like the fundraising idea, because I look at this as like the assistant athletic director for development, right? His job is to make sure all the programs are funded and heading in the right direction.
Jarrett Aguchi-Onyewu now a part of the process with the men's national team, with Crocker in. Aguchi-Onyewu is now in, and now we're maybe probably getting closer to a manager as a part of all of this, unless Jim Curtin and or Jesse Marsh both go to Chicago as a part of the process now.
Yeah, that's the one. So I'm waiting on the butterfly effect to hit full tilt here, where like it ends with Jesse Marsh and his 200 career appearances with the Chicago Fire taking over the Chicago Fire and taking a role in player recruitment, because I don't think either one of those guys would take that job, and I would not take the Chicago job unless I got to have a say in the players coming in, because you think we've missed on DPs? But Chicago's got that in spades. I wouldn't take that job unless I had say of who's coming in, who's coming out. However, some butterfly effect where Jesse Marsh takes that job and Jim Curtin actually doesn't leave Philly, and then U.S. national team has to go hire somebody else.
Oof. I mean, my gut tells me that if Curtin is given something, even if it's B, not even A, but if it's A or B with the national team, he goes. Because if you look at where Philadelphia is right now in the standings, and with what
with losing in the Open Cup last night.
Yes, that is absolutely true as well. Losing in the Open Cup last night, you are no longer chasing after a trophy there either.
Who was in net for Minnesota last night? Who was it? Clint Irwin.
Yes.
Clint Irwin knocked you out of the Open Cup in 2023.
2014 was calling you.
Sorry, Rich.
2014 was calling. Clint Irwin, Atlanta United legend, Clint Irwin, saved 2 penalties and advanced the Loons, who lost it, who lost the opportunity to win against Philadelphia last night, not once but twice, and had an incident where you were up 3-2, and what was it? You had a player with an injury, and I'll put that word in quotes.
Yeah. It's not even. I think that was 3-2. Yeah, where like the dude goes down, laying there to stop play, but he does it out of play off the side. Yep. The trainer comes out. He, instead of laying down in the field of play to stop play, he accidentally rolls off the field. So Minnesota goes quick and scores.
You're a man down, and at 3-2, you don't go down injured in the field of play. You go down injured out of the field of play. Quick throw, equalizer, 3-3. They keep playing. That's what happened last night in that match with Atlanta United legend Clint Irwin saving the day for Minnesota United, figuratively and literally. Right now, Philadelphia, dare I say it, and I'm sure that folks up in Philly,
they're
average. They're 4-4-2. And yeah, they take care of business at home, but they're average right now. And I think that if Jim Curtin gets the chance to jump, that unless all of the Union Academy guys come through and you get that next wave of youth, I think Jim Curtin goes. I think he goes, Bart.
Well, I'll say this for the Philadelphia team right now is I think they were focused on not MLS things for the first 2 months of the season, and I understand that completely. I think now that they're able to fully focus on league play, you'll see an uptick in their league form.
Okay.
but yeah, I think Jim Curtin's the next coach to make that jump. I think he has earned respect because you can see that he is doing a lot with a little. He clearly understands how to get a team to buy in. And, I don't know if he does quite the rah-rah stuff that Jesse Marsh does, but I think he still has a little bit of that. And that's a very American coaching trait that Europeans say they don't like, but actually do. Don't let them tell you any differently. And I think that could, that type of thing could work. And I think he is, as much as I think he tactically fits what Philly wants to do, I think he probably has a little bit more technical agnosticism than Jesse Marsh does, right? Jesse Marsh is under the philosophy of press. And I think Jim Curtin probably could do more than just that. I don't think he would ever be like a possession-based, let me Pep Guardiola you. But I do think that he would be better for a team who is, again, not as talented as the rest of the teams in their league, not as much quality on their roster, but still be able to get a lot of good results with them.
Because, Jarrett, you have to be malleable in this situation as a national team coach. You can't just bring your 4-4-2 diamond philosophy with the talent that the U.S. has on hand and expect that in a 3-week camp before friendlies or international windows to sit there and say, okay, we're going to do 4-4-2 diamond, and you're going to be the Ali Bedoya role, and you're going to be up top, and you're going to do this, and you're going to hit, and Walker Zimmerman, you're going to turn into Jacob Glesnes, and you're going to do. You've got to be more malleable in this situation, regardless of what your mindset is.
You do, and you mean it's an interesting thing that this has been such a hard set decision when look at the players the U.S. is developing around the world, even in MLS, before they jump to around the world. These are people who are designed more often than not to play with the ball at their feet. At this point, they're growing that way to where they play with the ball at their feet a ton. They play in build up, the counter press. In a lot of places they are.
Mm-hmm.
To ask them to play straight up, unfiltered, energy drink style, it feels like kind of a waste of what they can do. Now you can find middle ground there. Like I think Philadelphia, especially last year, found middle ground where, they were, they like to play that. We've talked about this before ad nauseum with Bart. I think that, Philadelphia likes to play this antagonistic style. They want to press you. They want to really bring the physicality into the game, and they're relying on,
defensively. Yeah,
they're relying on the game to be called loosely, and for people to just expect them to play that way and kind of become a normal as opposed to an abnormal treatment of the game.
Mm-hmm.
However, what Philadelphia did really well, talked about this yesterday, versus Red Bulls and other clubs, is Philadelphia got those difference maker guys right. Got the Weston McKennies, the Gio Reynas. Those are the guys you would be looking at in this situation, assuming Gio Reyna does not have a full-on Jerry Springer moment with this entire organization, the national team.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Jerry.
Yes.
But
it's the first time I've heard his name in a joking sense like that since that happened. There it is. Breaking news officially that Oguchi Onyewu is now the vice president of sporting.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but
okay.
Yeah, but Philadelphia has nailed those difference maker guys that I think the USA has. So, could you install some of that high pressing system? Sure, but when teams don't want the ball, you're going to have to be able to modify it to be able to play with the ball to build up. And you've got guys who can do that, but do you have like a coach who's willing to bend a bit on that?
And that's what I'm concerned with too, Jarrett, because we've seen how Panama, especially Costa Rica, and other teams like that, they have they are not going to do the whole we'll try to play with the ball the way that that the U.S. that is one thing that I do vehemently believe that Berhalter understood and tried to implement was we are going to have to be a ball dominant team because so many teams in this region are going to want to not have the ball, right? We've seen how El Salvador, gets after us. I do think that Jim might actually work well against El Salvador because, he is I think El Salvador gets into the trap where they do try to play with the ball a little too much. But for the most part, you have all these teams that are inferior, to be just blunt.
No, that's true.
You know, maybe it works against a team like Canada, right? Who, you know, refuses to try to play soccer as well. I mean, they play just like Philadelphia plays.
Yeah.
You know, their entire philosophy is to put you on a Canadian football field, which is 50 yards wide, and compress all the space possible. That could work against them. But
they also tried to change their culture. They also tried to change their not their culture. They also tried to change their philosophy 3 times in 3 games of the World Cup. There was no here's how we play. It was trying to be a chameleon and failing 3 times.
Yeah. And so I don't know if I want Curtin at the men's national team right now. I'm not. That's not the person I would hire. I don't
not
think
even the number 2. Not
well,
even.
I think it's. I think it's who's number 2.
No, and not even
as a number 2, because there were the rumors for a while that Marsh would get the job and Curtin would leave Philly to go be.
I don't
his
want
number
Marsh
2.
either. Sorry.
No, I don't either.
So then, who's at the top of your list? Who's your list that is not
Patrick Vieira is the top of my list, to be 100% honest.
Okay.
Because I think he has enough knowledge of the U.S. soccer system, right? It would not be a shock to him to have to work with within MLS in terms of trying to get people. But he is a very smart. I think he's a very smart tactician. I think he got New York City to the level that New York City is now. Well, was at. Right, he was in my opinion, he was the first guy to get them past we got a bunch of retired guys who play soccer and may or may not actually be interested in playing on this baseball field to, we're an actually good soccer team. And, you know, I think obviously coaches after him were able to take that up a notch, but, you know, I think he was pretty good at Palace as well, and he doesn't have national team coaching experience, but man has international experience,
right?
And understands what that is, and I think he's tactically flexible enough. I mean, I think at New York City it was a different style of play than what we saw at Crystal Palace, but he still tried to play that way at Palace, but he understood it couldn't be 100% in one direction, and I think the U.S. fits a lot weirdly in that Crystal Palace spot where we're better than most teams we're going to play. But we're also not better than the best teams that we're gonna come up against. You know, in CONCACAF, yes, we are going to dominate most teams, and we should be looking to be proactive. But even against a team like Canada or Mexico, right, very good teams, or any of the teams that will play at the World Cup that are better than us, you have to have a level of defensive resolve. And look, Crystal Palace is what they are. They are what they are in the terms of like fact that they just are always going to be that mid-table club. That's just what they are because
despite what Steve Parrish wants not to do with his level of investment.
Yeah, I mean, and that's right. That's the unfortunate. Their salary does not actually match that, which is weird. Their salary budget does, but I think Vieira is right now my favorite option, who I think is reasonable. I think that's the other thing is you have to think like who is a actual like reasonable option. Now he may still want to be a European coach, and I would not hold that against him, but I think he would do really well with the men's national team.
I will always remind people because people, especially in Atlanta, they have their benchmarks about what they want out of a coach, and you can. I think it's easy to tie things back to Tata Martino in Atlanta for better or worse. But I will always say that there are 2 coaches where I saw Tata Martino be visibly almost joyful after a game talking to, where, you know, he would walk over, he would dap them up, and they would stand there and talk and laugh for a minute, where he thoroughly seemed to enjoy the tactical game. One of them was Greg Berhalter, whether you like it or not, and the other one was Patrick Vieira. After a New York City game, I think it was in 2018, he walked over, and the smile on his face as they shook hands and were laughing. I mean, they were just, you know, it looked like it looked like they had just played a game of chess and they had just had a good time.
Mm-hmm.
So I know, especially locally, it's easy to say, you know, okay, I know everyone's touchstone is what Tata Martino did in Atlanta. Those days are gone. But if you want to measure your coaches based off of, if that guy is one of your touchstones, you're talking about a guy in Patrick Vieira who he was very visibly enjoyed coaching against. Another one who's a free agent, even though he just washed out in Turkey, is Domi Tarrant.
Yeah.
That's another one that I'm not against, right? I think that would be an interesting look.
One other paragraph in the release involving Gucci Onyewu. Onyewu will, reporting to Crocker, Onyewu will also play a prominent role in managing relationships with clubs and leagues in the United States and across the world, along with strengthening other stakeholder relationships, end quote. So,
yeah, I think, again, that's a pretty important task that Matt Crocker cannot be bogged down with. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That is a Gucci Onyewu task.
He's going to be Del McGee, is what you're saying, Bart.
Yeah. I don't know who that is.
He's the lead recruiter for one of the lead recruiters for Kirby Smart.
Oh, yes. Okay, thank you. Yeah. No, I mean, and that's what you want. Matt Crocker is not going to go recruit Florin Balogun. Gucci Onyewu now can, and that's important. I think that's where we're looking at, and I do think that this is setting up. As I said in the last episode of Soccer for Us, is that I don't expect a coach to be in place by the Gold Cup.
Yeah.
I do expect the hire to be announced by then.
Okay. What else is going on?
You could also just go tell Giovanni Savarese Portland can be someone else's problem. Please
yeah.
Work for this
bring in Gio Savarese. There you go.
I don't know if I'm on the Gio train anymore, to be honest.
That's okay. I mean, just you talk about that same thing. I think we saw Japan struggle with that, getting to the World Cup. Japan almost missed the World Cup.
Yeah,
a lot of it because that Oceania Asia qualifier, they played a bunch of teams that didn't want the ball. They had trouble breaking them down. They got to the World Cup, played a bunch of teams that want the ball. They were able to put them under pressure. It's getting to the World Cup and playing at the World Cup can be different animals,
Yes, just ask John Herdman. Bart, what else is going on with the Soccer for US POD? Because I know we're now we're in extra time.
Yeah, we are. So we've got hopefully the U20 men's roster coming out in the near future. I mean, I hope so. They play next Saturday, so they might need to tell people that they're going.
Yes.
And
I wonder if they're holding off because of Chicago
as well.
It could be. It could be holding off.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is, those come. I'll say this: Brian Gutierrez, I want to go. Chris Brady, I would like to see there. I don't think he's starting. And Antonio Carrera, Antonio Carrera, the backup is fine. So you're talking about the third string goalkeeper. I don't think it's that big of a deal, especially because Gaga's your number one. Let's be real honest about this. But Chris Brady has been really good this year for Chicago, despite the team being terrible. And I want to be there. But Gutierrez is the one that I think would be the most helpful. And from Atlanta, you got off for similar reasons you want to send Caleb Wiley to get more. But for Tyler, you're facing this a contract decision with him at the end of this year and a future with the club type of decision. To be blunt, and having the ability to say, well, he played at the U20 World Cup is a great selling point to get you a couple, maybe if it's just a $5,000 more from whoever you're selling them to, because I don't think you're selling them to anyone big, but it does add to that.
Soccer for US POD at Bartimus Prime
and
19. So. Yes, and at Jared_Smith. Bart, once you get off the air with us, you can catch up with the news about West Virginia because there's been a release on that as well. And that is college hoops.
Trying to avoid West Virginia right now.
Yeah, that's college hoops down here. It's another show from the OSG side.
John, I have gotten drunk with Huggy on multiple occasions. I'll just say this, and this was the most shocking thing I've heard him say, and I did not expect it.
Yeah,
to be blunt.
No,
I was disappointed.
And it also makes me wonder if anything's going to happen with Mr. Cunningham and WLW too. But that's that we'll see it from the media side.
I'm interested in that. Also, I need to clarify. I was drunk. Huggy doesn't get intoxicated. I think he just is like I was drinking and then becoming intoxicated. Huggy's, I don't know, drinking normally. So we were not drunk together.
you were enjoying each other's company within the same personal space.
Yes, while sipping on alcoholic beverages.
And the level
reminding him that I kept half of his team out. Yeah,
yes.
Reminding him I kept half of his team eligible for about 2 and 3 years. So,
and the level of impact of the beverages in that personal space varies from individual to individual, is what you're saying.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. All right. Bartimus Prime 19, as always, great to catch up with you, Bart.
Bye, y'all.
Be good. Bart is gone because he's got work. Jarrett, send us home.
Mucha plata, y'all.
What he said. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll catch up with folks in USLW. Be back at it at 9:05. Play it safe. End of the show. That means I get to do this.